one of the huge dangers for climate change is that it has this label of being an environmental issue, that it's all about the environment, it's about green, the solutions are eco this, eco that, that it's covered by the environmental correspondent on a newspaper, and he writes an environmental column in the environmental pages talking about what the environment minister said for the government's environmental policy. And by putting a line around it and calling it environment, of course, it's kept segregated from the most powerful areas of activity in government. But it's actually a way that individuals and also progressive organisations draw a line around it and say, we don't have to deal with this. So on an individual basis, there's many people who say, oh, I'm not a greenie. I'm not a tree hugger. I like my steak and chips. Oh, that's what they do. And they're either kind of quietly tolerant of it, or indeed, if they're like Jeremy Clarkson, kind of like outright kind of, sneering. Because that's a way that they keep themselves away from the issues, of saying it doesn't need to concern me. There's a bigger issue when it comes to organisations, is that major organisations, progressive organisations, who historically have been on the front line of international political change, have completely thrown up their hands and so far failed in any way to deal with this. And one of the reasons that they do that is they go, oh, it's environment. We don't really do environment, do we? So in the human rights area, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, only actually in the last year saying anything about climate change. You go to their websites, no mention of climate change anywhere. This is the leading cause of international refugees. Ministry of Defence, Pentagon saying this is one of the leading causes of future conflict. One of these concerns, human rights concerns. One of the greatest human rights abuse of all time. And they're not dealing with it. Because they're going, oh, it's kind of environment. We don't do environment. Same thing with trades unions too. Labour movement scarcely engaged with this issue. Same thing across the board. Refugee organisations, social justice organisations not involved. And I think there's a whole sectors of society have written themselves out of it. So obviously the answer is we stop talking about it as being environment. We don't try and bring them into the environmental fold. We say climate change isn't about the environment. It's about jobs, it's about welfare, it's about human rights, it's about social justice. It's your thing. It's really, how can we find ways of giving new sectors ownership of this issue? Not trying to bring them into being environmentalists, but saying this isn't actually environment anymore. This is your core concern too.